S-Grunt. Man, that's a name I haven't heard in a while. Hello everybody, this is Mr. 831, and actually I want to pause this for a little bit and give a little introduction. So, quick disclaimer, if any of you are a veteran tool-assisted speedrunner and you're coming here to hear me ramble about all the tips and tricks I have for this game, you're going to be disappointed, because this is actually going to be a very laid-back, social kind of commentary, I think. But, essentially what I am doing is I'm revisiting something I made when I was fairly young, and a bit of a prodigy, I guess you could say. This is a tool-assisted speedrun of a Game Boy game called Donkey Kong Land 2. And I made this when I was 13 years old. Well, I started it when I was 13. And I finished it when I was 14. So it had about a year's worth of development. And for those who don't know, a tool-assisted speedrun is essentially where you play a game. Well, first off, a speedrun is where you try to beat a game as fast as you can, but a tool-assisted one is where you put it in an emulator and you advance the game frame by frame and use save states to correct any mistakes you have. So a tool-assisted speedrun is a theoretical best possible way you could ever play the game, and that's not the case with this one here, as I will explain. But for the most part, I'm here to reminisce about the years gone by, I think, and talk about something that I made so long ago and something I kind of look back on and laugh at now. But overall, I do hope you enjoy it. And, yeah, let's get this show on the road. Alright, so here we are. This is Donkey Kong Land 2. This is a Game Boy down conversion of the game Donkey Kong Country 2 for the Super Nintendo, and oh gosh, that's a name I don't like to see anymore. Effectively, it's the same basic concept. Diddy and Dixie are supposed to be, rescuing Donkey Kong, but either way, if you're familiar with the Super Nintendo game, this shouldn't be that unusual to you. I think for the first part of this TAS, I'm going to try and actually talk about the mechanics and what I'm doing, and then through the rest of it, I'm going to kind of just ramble about my memories with making this. So, this is a 102% run, or I think it's labeled as 102%, but it's actually... I think the game only goes up to 100. It's not actually 102. The Super Nintendo version goes up to 102, but this one does not. And effectively, what you try to do is get every bonus barrel, which is what I did, and get all the coins. And then you'll see right here, you also want to try and get all of those DK coins. And actually the DK coins I don't think count as 100%, but everybody who has ever done a 100% run of this game, or of the Super Nintendo version anyway, they'll always go for the DK coins anyway, because it's like, why would you not do that? And what I am doing, the first world has warps on every level. So what I'm doing is that I first go through the warp barrel, finish the level, and then get the bonus barrel, and then hit start and then select to exit the level. For some reason, I thought that was faster on every level in the first world, and I don't think it actually is. For this level, I think this might be an exception because, well, you're going down. I think that's a lot faster than, well, going up. But, oh yeah, and you'll see something I constantly do throughout this run is that, so, jumping is actually faster than walking, which is why I'm almost always in the air. But you'll also see I almost always use Dixie's hang glide, or her hovering ability, and I didn't do any proper testing at the time, but, that's actually slower than just jumping, or just not doing that. And I don't know why I used and abused it so much throughout the entire run, but yeah, I do it a lot, and it bugs me so much now every time I watch it. So yeah, doing the same old, same old. Is there anything else I have to say right now? Oh, and as I had mentioned in the introduction, a tool-assisted speedrun, you usually want to do it frame by frame. But something I didn't do with this run, in the first world at least, I only ran the game at what was it? 25%, 12% speed? Like, all I did was slow the game down, so actually a lot of this is not frame accurate. Like, even just skipping the bonus level intros, it's not by the frame. I don't even know what I was thinking, and I don't know why I completely didn't toss out the first world after I did that. I didn't start doing frame advance until the second world because I was lazy. I mean, I was 13 years old, okay? Give me a break. So yeah, that's about all I have to say about the mechanics of the game. As for what the game actually is, well, it's basically Donkey Kong Country 2 crammed onto a tiny Game Boy cartridge. I mean, even the level names all have the same names, aside from 2, which I'll get to when I get to. And even then, the ones that have different names, they're very similar in concept to ones from the SNES version. So, what inspired me to make this run? Well, at the time, I was really into speedrunning for some reason. I don't know why that was. Well, that's a story I'll get into probably later in the run. But I was really into speedrunning at the time, and I was also going through a stage of being into the Donkey Kong Country series. This was not long after I had first discovered it. So, oh, and we're already at the first boss, jeez. Yeah, this was not long after I had first discovered the Donkey Kong Country series, and then I found out that, wow, that was a horrible mistake. Why did I leave that in? Yeah, so I had checked out the Game Boy games on an emulator. Yeah, spoiler alert, I didn't do it legally. But I was checking them out on an emulator, and I liked them, and I saw there were no tool-assisted speedruns for them, and keep in mind, this was back in 2008. Speedrunning has grown considerably since 2008, and granted it wasn't as small as it was in 2004, but it's still a lot bigger now, so at the time there were no TASes of Donkey Kong Land 2, and in fact, I don't think anybody's ever done a better run than this, which is shocking to me, because as I said, this run's not good. It's horrible. In fact, I think if I were to publish it, if I were to submit it today, it would not get published. Yeah, I think a lot has changed since 2009, since it was originally submitted. But, yeah. Oh yeah, this is a really cool trick. If you get Squitter and, like, no matter how fast you are falling, if you spit out a spider web and then hit select on the next frame, you will always land on the web. That's just... I thought that was so cool, and I wanted to do that as much as I could. But that also slows you down, which is stupid because I do it here where there's floor below me. Yeah, like I said, this is not an optimized run. And I keep hitting the ceiling too, which slows you down. Why is there a ceiling in a volcano? So yeah, I wanted to do a run of this game, and the history of it was that I first did a test run where I just did an any % run straight through the game, and unlike this run, that entire run was done at 25% speed, or what's it called now? I don't remember, it's been 9 years. It was 2008, 9 years ago. Yeah, oh yeah, and I also remember that jumping on enemies is actually the slowest way of moving in this game, which is great because in that bonus round you can only jump on them because they're all claptraps, and if you roll into them, you die. I totally lost my train of thought. Like I said, relaxed commentary. So either way, I think I had been inspired to make this because, you know, nobody else had done it. And, I didn't get a whole lot of critic for this run, though. One of the reasons it's so unoptimized is because nobody really gave me any pointers. I know Mike89 made some pointers. Boy, I haven't talked to him in forever. He gave me some pointers early on, but as the run progressed more and more, nobody really gave me any kind of criticism or any critique on the run, and it just... Yeah, the run was... I don't know. What can you really do? And as the run progresses, I think it gets better and better. Like, I don't make as many sloppy mistakes. But overall, it's a pretty messy run, and oh yeah, that's something that only happens sometimes. I think you saw I went into the side of the barrel there. For some reason, I was only able to launch into that barrel and still land on that platform if I went in from the side. Don't ask me why. God, I sound so professional right now, don't I? I know some people get, like, really in-depth about how they... Oh yeah, sacrifice. I know some people really go in-depth on how they make their speedruns and TASes, and I'm just like... Yeah, this speedrun sucks. So, as I said, I'm primarily here to also reminisce about years gone by, and I think the thing that originally got me into speedruns was, I believe I was 10 years old, in the 4th grade. I was a kid who had access to Google Video. How many of you remember Google Video? And let's see, I remember searching up Super Mario 64. I believe I had gotten the DS version, but I hadn't played the original in forever, and I searched up Super Mario 64, and I think the first thing that came up was Specifer's tool-assisted speedrun of the game. That was when 16 stars was the fastest known way of beating it. And I remember being completely wowed by it. I was like, what in the world is this? And then I remember it happened again with Super Mario World. I don't remember whose run it was. I think that was when I was in 5th grade. Boy, I do not like to remember 5th grade. But I think that was an unassisted speedrun, and that was because I hadn't seen that game in forever and I really wanted to see it again. So yeah, I think that's what had originally got me into speedruns. So, and then for a while I just went on this really big speedrun binge, and then I discovered tool-assisted speedrunning. I remember I had tried to do real-time runs too, but I was not very successful at all. I was too quick to give up, and besides that, I didn't have any recording equipment. Why did I skip Rambi there? That was dumb of me. I didn't have any recording equipment. I think I had a VCR, but I think the Speed Demos archive was just on their way, they were just on their way to phasing out accepting VHS runs. Remember when they used to accept VHS runs? Pepperidge Farm remembers. Why did I just say a meme that was really unoriginal? Either way, I had no way of doing speedruns, and I don't think I even had any games that I could have speedrun anyway. Oh yeah, I was forced to get on this hot air balloon here because of this DK coin. Oh yeah, and I keep budging forward because I didn't do save states very well. I love how I go off one topic and then I lose my train of thought. Oh yeah, and I fumbled that up too. Yeah, I remember my friend and I really got into speedruns for a while. And it's really strange to think I did that from such a young age, and I laugh at how bad this run is, but really, consider the fact that I was 13. You know, I don't think there's anybody who's ever been that young and has gotten a tool-assisted speedrun accepted on TASVideos for what that's worth. So yeah, actually this is the second world of the game, and unlike the Super Nintendo version, the second and third world are actually combined into one world. I think Creme Quai is the second world in the SNES version, and... or no, that's the third one, and then the second is Crocodile Cauldron. Well, here they call it Creme Cauldron. So yeah, nice laziness. I actually don't even know if that was faster to go around that Zinger. Why do I still remember the enemy names? It's amazing how much I actually remember after all these years. Yeah, there's a lot of speedrunners I still remember from years gone by. I remember JXQ was one of my favorite ones. I don't think he's been active in ages. I remember Fabian, I remember Nitsuja. I know Biscuit, even though he created TASVideos, it was called NES Videos at first. Biscuit hasn't been active in forever. I remember Nitsuja, I don't know if I already said his name, I probably did. I remember A Delicate, I don't know if any of these people are still active. And a little fun fact about this run in particular is that A Delicate actually finished it for me. I think it was because like I just run out of motivation by the time I got to the Lost World. So I just like stopped working on it altogether, and then he offered to finish it, and I was like, yeah, sure, do it. I'm not gonna finish this, so please. And he's not credited because he only contributed like the last 4 levels, so he felt that wasn't. Oh, that was a pretty cool trick. I gotta give myself credit for that. Yeah, actually, you're not supposed to be able to do that. So those barrels are supposed to be 8 direction, but if you time it on the right frame, you can actually get those barrels to like point between the 8 directions and they'll shoot out properly. Normally they only do that because of the animation. Oh yeah, suck it, Rare, I didn't have to use Squitter. Yeah, you're not supposed to be able to shoot like that. You're supposed to be able to shoot diagonally, but not diagonally like that. That's like a 30-degree angle rather than a 45-degree. Oh yeah, and you're also supposed to be able to hit that target without jumping, like just shoot out of the barrel and hit the target, but I didn't do that because, again, I'm lazy. Oh yeah, in this level, you're supposed, I think you can actually do it blind, and the excuse oh my gosh, this is so sloppy. That was embarrassing. I don't know if you're able to make it through the stage blind or not, but I didn't want to because, again, I was lazy. I mean, I skipped barrels when I could, but for the most part it seemed like most of them were on the beaten path. No, use your charge, don't keep... This run is terrible. It's actually on Vault, I think, which is the lowest tier. I don't even know how I remember this. Oh yeah, I easily could have avoided that barrel. Yeah, in the Super Nintendo version of this game, you have like a little anglerfish that follows you through the level, and he's your source of light, but this version is kind of just a blackout basement sort of level. I always hated these kinds of levels. Yeah, at least I skipped that one there. You know, I think actually what I did was that for the barrels that I could avoid... Oh yeah, I think I avoid a barrel here. Yeah, I don't even know how I did that. I really cannot tell you. I had Turbo A on, and... Yeah, for some reason I avoided that barrel. Either way... I think what I did for most of the level when I couldn't hit the barrel is that I would hit the barrel and then try to use rote memorization to remember what the level looked like. But I felt like I was going to make some dumb mistake. Oh yeah, so you can actually go under the reeds, and I didn't discover that until halfway through making this level. So... But you'll notice that in a minute. Yeah, just give it a little bit. I think I get on a few more, and then I start going underneath them. Okay, I think, yeah, like that. And I didn't know that until halfway through the level. And of course, if I was any good at making TASes at the time, I would have restarted the level and done that from the start, and I did not. So, yeah, any tool-assisted speedrunner worth their salt that's watching this, you have a run that can be easily improved. It amazes me how few people actually notice this. You know, actually there was a lot of debate whether people wanted to publish the run or not. You know, I was gonna be okay if it wasn't published or not, and I'd probably still be here commentating on this today if it wasn't published, so really I would have been fine if it wasn't, and it's on the vault now, so it's like the lowest tier. But it is what it is, and you know, I'm not gonna tell them to just, you know, take it off because it's not like something I'm ashamed of. It has my old embarrassing internet name attached to it. But, you know, it is what it is. Gosh, we're already a fifth of the way through this run? Jeez. Yeah, it's gonna be a little bit hard for me to actually sit through this whole thing, so I'm gonna probably be talking a lot about what was going on with me at the time. You know, actually, I think a good place to start is how I actually worked on this task. So, as a 13-year-old, I was in the 7th grade at the time. I think... Yeah, actually, I don't remember when I started it specifically, but... oh yeah, I always liked the way this level turned out. It's still not very good, per se, but I still like the way it turned out because, like, for some reason this level just always ends up looking impressive no matter what you do. Yeah, I was in middle school at the time, and I think I would work on this tool-assisted speedrun. I would put VBA on my flash drive, Visual Boy Advance, that was the emulator and the game, and I would work on it when I was, like, at school, which really isn't a good use of your free time. But I remember I would work on it there, and of course I would work on it from home. I remember I would sometimes bring it to friends' houses and work on it there. And, I remember some people would see what I was doing, they'd be like, what in the world are you doing? Why is your game running so slow? I'm like, no, this is an art form, dude. This is the artist at work here, don't criticize me. Either way, yeah, I'd work on it a lot from home, I'd work on it at school, and of course, I had a lot of free time, which of course meant I should have been using that amount of free time to actually make this run good. And needless to say, I did not. And you'll even see, it only has about 10,000 re-records, which a re-record is however many times you load a save state. And 10,000 re-records for an hour-long movie is insane. Like, you know, depending on what game it is, you can have more or fewer re-records, but for this kind of game, I think 10,000 is way too little. I know, let's look at the original Donkey Kong Land Tool-Assisted Speedrun for comparison. I know it has a task, I think Tampa made it. And I'm not even paying attention to this boss fight. Well, actually, I think a better way of looking at it, I know... I love how I just have this radio silence in the middle of the video. Oh gosh, the beehive levels. So... one thing that I think I should mention is that whenever I climb up those walls of honey, you can actually do that by the oh my gosh, why am I doing that? If you do it frame by frame, it's way faster, and I think I do it in the next beehive level. I might actually start doing it on this level too. Okay, yeah, Tampa's Donkey Kong Land Task has about 64,000 re-records. Yeah, about 6 times more than this movie has, and it's longer. Good grief. Yeah, his is about half the length, so that really should put it in perspective. Yeah, this... this run really... could have been better, to say the least. And actually, I'm running this at 60 frames per second because it's important that you see the nature of some of the frame-by-frame tricks I do. Although, Sony Vegas actually told me it was like 48 frames per second. I'm using sgrun's encode, so I trust that your encode is actually good. It better be. Oh gosh, these roller coaster levels are so boring. Okay, that was bad right there. Why did I just do that? A lot of this is just self-deprecation, just me talking about how awful this run is. Yeah, I mean, this level is pretty straightforward. But, you know, I actually should mention, I have this game on a real Game Boy now. At the time, I did not. So, yeah. I was a bad 14-year-old. A bad 13-year-old, I guess. Around this time was when I was going through a classic game spree. This was when I discovered a lot of the old games that, you know, a lot of people a generation above me had grown up on, and I think I really did end up allowing a lot of grown-ups relate to me. They're like, oh my gosh, you're playing that game, that was my favorite game when I was a kid! And it was just... it's definitely something very new. My parents didn't really grow up with video games, they were a little bit above that age. My dad grew up in the arcade era. My mom, I don't think really played arcade games much, though. But my dad, I think he was like in high school or college when the arcade boom happened, and so, you know, he played like Galaga and Pac-Man and stuff. Oh, this level, I'm gonna be straight up honest, I pretty much copied the strategy on this level from a YouTuber called Blaziken257. So, yeah, all these ridiculous shortcuts I'm using, these are not my finding. Why am I not doing that by the frame? So yeah, this run's not even original. And by the way, I also want to say, if you're wondering about the weird color palettes and stuff, and the border around the game, I kind of wish the border wasn't there, to be honest. The border is really unnecessary, but there was an accessory for the Super Nintendo called the Super Game Boy, and it would allow you to supposedly play Game Boy games in color, but in reality it actually mostly just put like a tint on the screen. It didn't actually play them in color. There were a few games that utilized tricks, like Donkey Kong 94 had some nice tricks for it. But for the most part, Super Game Boy compatible games were pretty lame, and this is a good example of it, because in every level they just change the tint on the screen to match whatever the environment of the level is. So like, this is green because we're in brambles, like the snow levels would be white, the ship deck levels would be brown. But it doesn't really do a whole lot for the game. Yeah, and the entire idea of trying to get the SGI, or I guess CGI graphics, same difference, onto a Game Boy is like... the screen has 4 colors! How can you do that? And I think the original game is much worse about this, but the second and third game aren't particularly great about it either, and that's just really unfortunate. You know, honestly, after actually getting to play this game for real without save states, I can say it's really not as good as it looks. Like, this level is really hard to pull off well, to get ahead of everybody, and yeah, I don't know. This game is of kind of dubious quality. It tried, it really did, but at the end of the day, you just can't put Donkey Kong Country on a Game Boy cartridge. It just doesn't work. Overall, I think starting in the 4th grade was when I found classic games. Well, in the 3rd grade, I had a neighbor who had a Super Nintendo, and I remember loving playing Super Mario World. And I remember seeing that on the Game Boy Advance before that, but I had never actually played the Super Nintendo. Oh, I love that trick where you stand on the bramble corner. I think I only do it one other time in the run, and I really should have done it more. But I had a friend who had a Super Nintendo. That was kind of cool. He had a Super Nintendo, and I remember playing Super Mario World a ton on there, and I'm one of the only ones from my generation who can claim I played the SNES version and not the Game Boy Advance version. And later on, when I got the nostalgic rush to play that game again, I started looking back at the older NES games too, and well, I learned an important lesson. Just because a game is old does not mean it's bad. And, you know, this was before the huge classic game collecting hobby really became a thing. And I remember at the time, I was really excited to start playing games on an old system when I got older. And, you know, really what I should have done was at the time ask my parents to allow me to have a few, but they were already iffy about letting me have more than one game system to begin with. You will not believe what it took to let them allow me to have a Wii after having a PS2. But I wanted to have a classic game system, and of course I couldn't at the time. Having the Wii was a nice remedy for that, and I didn't know about emulators either. So yeah, I was excited for when I got older. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna have like a paying job and I'll be able to actually play all the old games I want. And needless to say, those dreams have been crushed beyond all belief now, because I'm sure anybody who is half-versed in the game collecting hobby probably knows how insane that the game collecting hobby has become. I mean, for starters, I have a Game Boy Color, of course. That's one nice thing. But, you know, prices have gotten to be overinflated. Like, finding Super Mario Bros. 3. Super Mario Bros. 3 is not a rare game at all, and yet for some reason, the second-hand prices of it have gotten jacked way up ever since many years ago. And just, it is kind of frustrating that I got so excited as a kid to actually be able to play these old games after I got older, and game collecting happened. Now we have scalpers, and you know, it's just gotten to be ridiculous. And the funny thing is, what goes around comes around. When I was really little, I mostly played on the computer. I never really played on the PC, or I never had any console until the PS2, and that was after it already had a fair amount of time on the market. Let's see, I think I got my PS2... looks like I got it in December of 2003, so, man, it wasn't that long ago. So, yeah, I got the PS2 in 2003. So technically, really, it was 2004. And as a result, I think... Where was I even going with this? This is really disjointed, and I do apologize, but we've still got 30 minutes left. You can hear me ramble for a bit more. Yeah, I got the PS2, and... Yeah, I got the PS2, and I had that for a few years, and then... My parents were very hesitant to get me a Wii because I was on my PS2 all the time, and, oh yeah, Randy killed something with his butt. Those words just came out of my mouth. I had wanted to get a Wii because I remember one of the reasons was because they had the classic games on them, you know, the virtual console. But my parents were very hesitant. You know, actually, I think my parents regret letting me have a Wii in retrospect, and I think they regret even letting me have video games at all. You know, they let me have 3 consoles, so I had the Wii and my Nintendo DS Lite and the PS2. But yeah, overall, it was... You know, I was into console gaming for a while, and now what goes around comes around. I'm collecting for the personal computer now. And I'm preserving my old 486 and everything. It's like... It's just kind of silly now. So yeah, honestly, I'm pretty glad that I'm not collecting for, like, the NES or the Super Nintendo or anything, because it's just... Man, that market has gone to be insane beyond words. It's... Like, if you have seen eBay lately, it's... I honestly don't like what it's become, and it's just sad to me. You know, a lot of people just collect with the intent of never playing their games or doing anything with them, and... You know, I guess I'm guilty of this too. I have a lot of games in my PC collection, but one thing I like to do with them is preserve them and make CD images out of them so they're preserved for the future when the CD wears out. I think, gosh, most games I copy don't have DRM. God, that's a topic for another day. I hate DRM. But, you know, I record them and preserve them for YouTube as much as I can. I've gotten out of that lately, but I think that's just been a lack of motivation and a lot of things piling up on me. But in general, it's just... Game collecting has become insane, and even seeing what it's done to, say, the NES Classic Edition, you know, you had scalpers abound trying to save that console and just make money off of it, and now it's become rare because Nintendo had a horrible supply, or they just did not predict how much demand there was going to be for that dang thing. And it's like, have you even seen eBay lately? Nintendo has honestly felt really disconnected with gamers as of late. I just really feel like they're a company that's stuck in the 90s, and it's sad to me that, you know, they have so many good intentions, but they've utterly failed at adapting to the digital age. You know, they have horrible online service. The Switch doesn't have a virtual console, which I don't understand at all. It was successful on the last two consoles. Why not keep it? And Nintendo has just made some baffling decisions as of late, and you know, it's amazing to me that a company that single-handedly saved the video game industry back in the 80s really has dropped the ball as of late. I just don't understand it. But anyway, I don't want this to turn into a rant about Nintendo. Either way, I made do with what I could at the time. And having a Game Boy Advance allowed me to pick up some of the SNES classics that had been adapted to the GBA, so believe it or not, I actually have the full lineup of the Super Mario Advance series. And when I got the Wii, I also got all the Super Mario Brothers games and Super Mario World. I also got to experience Super Mario 64 on my own. And that was a game I had played a bunch when I was a kid because it was everywhere. Like, doctor's offices had it, I remember at Kroger, the grocery store, they used to have this area for children, and they would usually have like two Nintendo 64s in the room, and I remember one of them would be playing some random game, and the other would always be playing Super Mario 64. I remember my dentist office had Super Mario 64. Oh, one thing that was really cool was that I had gone to a vet recently. I remember we were getting a checkup for I think it was my cat, and I remember my mom felt bad because she had to take me with her, and then it's like, I mean, of course I had to stay in the waiting room, but I found out in the waiting room they had a Nintendo 64 and quite a few other games, and this was... I don't think I was old enough to drive a car yet, or... Actually, I don't remember why I went with her. I could have stayed home alone at the time. Either way, that's not important. I remember there was a Nintendo 64 in the waiting room, and this was like in the new 10s. I was like, what in the world? What's this doing here? And I was like, this is so cool! And yeah, Super Mario 64 was one of the games on there, so... Yeah, Super Mario 64... That was a game I played a lot, but I never had a copy of my own, so... Kind of crazy. Oh yeah, this was really annoying right here. So you see that... Oh yeah, I'm actually talking about the TAS again. You'll see that I'm like gliding down. Normally you're supposed to get some birds and slowly float down, but if you go down below the screen, then it counts as a death. So, and what's really bad, you can see it lags on a few places here. And if it lags, then you fall even faster to the bottom of the screen. So, yeah, that's always a pain to deal with. Oh yeah, and Hero was forced to use the parrot because... yeah, that bonus level kicks you out right above a barrel, so there was really nothing I could have done, unfortunately. And it's just before the exit, so what are you gonna do? Yeah, the funny thing is, I totally missed over the fact that we just went over one of the 2 levels that had a different name. So there's a level in the original called Haunted Hall, where you're chased by this ghost guy. I don't remember his name, but yeah, you're on a roller coaster and you're getting chased by the guy. And I guess they couldn't implement that on this version of the game, so they just made it another roller coaster level called Crazy Coaster with a K, because K is a hip letter for some reason. Yeah, either way. I remember finding out emulators was another way to help me get into classic games. So that was definitely one nice thing. And I remember of course, I had grown up in the internet age, so I got to, like, see where all the warp zones were, and, you know, play Super Mario Bros. 3 and know how to get the warp whistles. It was kind of crazy. And, you know, I think I remember playing Super Mario Bros. 2, and, like, my mind got blown because I had played Super Mario Advance before, and I'm like, wait a minute, this looks familiar. Where did I see this before? And it's like, and then it hit me, like, oh my gosh, this is that game! And I remember Super Mario Advance at the time, but yeah. Another thing worth mentioning is that I actually have the GBA versions of all the Donkey Kong Country series as well. So yeah, I kinda went on a classic game spree for quite a while. Oh my gosh, there's only 20 minutes left on this task. What is going on here? Oh man, we're already on the last official world of the game. Yeah, I really don't remember a whole lot of these levels or how I made it through them. You know, as I had said, this TAS is horribly optimized. I really like this rendition of In a Snowbound Land, by the way. You know, one thing I haven't mentioned about this game is that a lot of the music is like or actually all the music is a rendition of the Super Nintendo soundtrack. And the Super Nintendo version is very widely recognized for having one of the best soundtracks of its time. David Wise really is a genius. And most of the 8-bit down conversions are actually pretty good in this version. There's quite a few that are missing from this version, unfortunately, but for the most part, it's pretty dang good if I do say so myself. A lot of people hate the GBA version soundtrack, but I actually like a lot of its renditions. Yeah, unfortunately the GBA was cursed to a really horrible sound chip that, especially when Super Nintendo ports became a thing, a lot of them were just... yeah. In fact, the GBA port of Donkey Kong Country 3 doesn't even have remixes of any of the previous themes. They were all... the soundtrack is actually completely original in the GBA version, and actually a lot of it is pretty good. You know, of course it doesn't help that the SNES's version is pretty divisive among most people. Some people think it's good, and some people think it's just... it tried way too hard to be atmospheric, and I can understand that. But I thought most of them were pretty great. So... Either way. I know some of the games that I had gotten into at this time were, mostly platformers, so like Super Mario Brothers and Donkey Kong Country, of course. I never really got into Zelda or Metroid. And I don't know, I just don't have patience to get into those games. I wish I did, but I don't. Of course, I'm ignoring that continue barrel there. If you haven't played this game before, that barrel is your checkpoint, so if you die, you start there. But yeah, I remember discovering Donkey Kong 94, that's kind of a platform puzzle game. I remember getting into the Kirby series. I played Kirby 64 when I was a kid. I remember getting into Mario Kart, so like Super Mario Kart, Mario Kart 64, Mario Kart Super Circuit. By the way, am I the only one who thinks Super Mario Kart 64 is aged horribly? I cannot be the only one who thinks that. That game just hasn't aged very well in my opinion. Okay, I think this is the other replaced level. So, in the original, this level was called Castle Crush. And the idea of it is that you had like this rising platform that obviously slowly rised and you had to avoid getting squished. Or else you would die, of course. Well, you would lose a Kong if you got crushed, but... So, obviously, I guess they couldn't really implement that on the Game Boy, so what they did, they just made a new level entirely and called it Dungeon Danger. So, it's basically a very similar level to Chain Link Chamber, which is later on. Oh my gosh, those guys are really annoying. I think they're called clingers. Why I remember this is beyond me. Yeah, there's actually a glitch you can exploit where like you go... Or like you go between the chain links and for some reason it kills them. It's not supposed to, but it does. In the original game, when you have like two chains next to each other, you can hold on to both of them at once. Think of like in Donkey Kong Jr., the arcade game. But you can't do that in this one. Piper's Cavern. That's a nice little shortcut. And yeah, you're supposed to just duck and glide under those. Under wherever the zingers are, but you'll see I kind of bob up and down whenever I do that. I think that's faster, I'm not sure. It's been 9 years since I made this, give me a break. Well, actually, probably when I was at this point in the game, it had been 8 years. So I think I had turned 14 by the time I had gotten to this part of the game. Worth mentioning, when I was making this run, I had just come out of one of the darkest points of my life. You know, I had just started the 7th grade, and, you know, a lot of people are like, ew, middle school, it just brings back horrible memories. Believe it or not, I actually liked middle school. I know, I'm an alien from another planet, but I actually liked middle school. And this run kind of... The nostalgia I have for it also just has to do with the fact that I had come off one of the roughest times of my life. You know, I had said earlier when commentating over this that I had come, 5th grade is a year I don't like to remember, and it's true, I don't like to remember 5th grade. I had There's probably a lot of things about it that I can't really go into too much detail about. But let's just say I kind of had turned into not so much a troublemaker, just as somebody who was clueless on how to actually behave in life. I grew up with Asperger's syndrome. And anybody who has grown up with that just knows how much of a struggle it is to go about your day-to-day life with that. And, you know, once you're in the 5th grade age, or heck, probably about 3rd or 4th grade, that's when people start getting selfish enough to make fun of you for being different, and it was very difficult. And granted, I was that weird kid. You know, a lot of people, anybody who probably remembers me from elementary school probably remembers that I really wasn't a pleasant person to be around. I only had about 2 friends in the school who stuck with me through a lot of that thick and thin, and they were probably the only ones who kept me afloat, but I had just gone through a really terrible time of my life, and with 5th grade, I'm not going to name names or anything, but let's just say there were a lot of people who I was dealing with at the time, both children and adults, who did not give me the right kind of treatment that I was supposed to be getting. And, you know, it's a public YouTube video, so I can't say everything. I can't reveal all the details. Why did I need to get damaged by that singer? That was really pointless. So, yeah. This tool-assisted speedrun got made at a time when we had moved to a different house, we had a fresh start, and I had started making new friends, and granted, I had another bullying problem, but that got resolved over time after I had actual authority who did their job. But either way, and you know, there's no one person at fault for the 4 on that. I'm not... You know, anybody who's probably at fault there is probably not even watching this video, so why am I even bothering? Either way, it just... You know, I made this TAS at a time in my life where things were just really starting to look up, and I'm just really happy that I had gotten to a point where, you know, my life was finally starting to look up, and, you know, I'm in a much better place now. I'm at college. I'm majoring in the thing that I want to do after I get out of school, and it's just... I'm just really grateful for what I am now, and this TAS really reflects a lot of memories I have about that, so yeah, I laugh about this TAS a lot, but it really does hold a special place in me as... Oh, that was totally necessary. So, yeah, we're actually almost approaching the first final boss of the game. We still have the Lost World to go through, which... the Lost World in this game is... You can only... Depending on how many coins you have, that's how you get into it. I forget if in this version you have to have like a certain amount of coins to open up levels, or like you just have to have all of them and then you can go to the Lost World. I know in the SNES version, to get to the Lost World, you have to spend a handful of coins at a time. But, yeah. So back on topic. Yeah, this TAS is just... It does evoke special nostalgia in me, and I'm really happy that, even though it may not be very good, it still is the current run as of this posting, which I'm shocked about. I don't think anybody worth their salt would have looked at this at this point and said, wow, this run is terrible, why has nobody improved this? But it is what it is. Come on, Tassers, I'm here! And, I mean, the only thing I really have to cringe about this is that it still has my old name attached to it. And obviously, I don't... I really like to forget that my old name was ever a thing, but... Either way. So this is the first final boss of the game. This is Captain K. Rool. And his pattern's pretty basic, especially compared to the SNES version. I mean, it's like really easy to dodge most of this stuff. And of course, they just reused the castle theme, whereas in the original game, you fight him in his airship. But, you know, it's a tiny Game Boy cartridge, you can't really cram a whole lot onto there. A lot of these tricks I'm doing are not even impressive. Like, one of the things you're supposed to do when you're doing a tool-assisted speedrun is that or at least by TASVideos policy, you're supposed to try and make entertainment and create art even when you're waiting, and that's not what I'm doing here. So, like, one example of that would be, you know, like in Super Mario Bros. 3, oh yeah, I have to reset the game here because, you know... I have to reset the game because now we're going to the Lost World and I didn't want to watch the credits. But yeah, like in Super Mario Bros. 3, for example, when you're on the airship levels, you know, there's a bunch of things coming at you at once, so what most TASers do is that they'll bounce on all of the projectiles and then get a one-up combo. And it's always really fun to watch. And I remember one trademark of Morimoto's original Super Mario Bros. 3 run, like the original TAS, like what's considered the earliest example of a tool-assisted speedrun. I remember he said, like, this run achieves 99 lives magnificently. TM. Okay, so now we're in the Lost World. I can't remember which of these... I think this is still my work. But then once we get into the next level, I think that's Mike89's work. And if his name sounds familiar, he's done some Sonic runs. And I think he's also done some other runs, but I can't remember for sure. I have to look at the description of this again. Okay, yeah, I think this level is also my work. Okay, he contributed the last 2 levels. So, I can't remember how many levels there are in the Lost World, actually. There's probably 5 levels, I think, because there's 5 worlds in the original game. There's 1 Lost World level per world, so it's probably the same here. I can't actually remember if there's any levels that got removed. Levels with the same name. Like, they have... The levels have the... Why was that necessary? The time would have been better spent just waiting for him to turn around. Either way... Yeah, I don't know if there's any levels that were removed. So levels have the same names, but they actually have the... They have original designs. They have the same theming, and where applicable, they try to have the same gimmicks. So, like, Rambi Rumble has, still has Rambi in it, obviously. And Windy Well still has the wind gimmick. Which, I think that's actually the only level gimmick that still remains in the game. That, and... The wind still remains on Web Woods, too, and any other levels that have it. I can't think of any that do or don't have it at this point. They still have those ghost ropes in Web Woods as well. That was a gimmick on the original. The hot air balloons are here, so yeah, actually they keep a lot of things. The original Donkey Kong Land is much more... what do I want to say? It's more original. For starters, the levels actually aren't even named in the game, but they are named in the manual. But, yeah, Donkey Kong Land mostly has original levels. Okay, from this point forward, I think this is Mike89's work. Yeah, you'll even see the quality of the TAS goes way up after that. Yeah, he's not gliding all over the place like I was. So I don't really have any kind of critique to give this particular run. Or these particular level takes, but... Wow, he's bouncing on a lot of enemies. I just contradicted myself. So actually, now I'm just watching this and seeing what in the world is even going on, because it's been so many years since I actually did this that I don't remember any of how these levels were done. Well, obviously, I didn't do these levels. Yeah, one thing worth mentioning is that the Lost World levels only have one bonus round in them per level. And they award you DK coins instead of Creme coins. So, that's worth mentioning. This game has horrible lag issues, jeez. Alright, now we're on Animal Antics. I think this is the last regular level of the game. In the original game, this was like a multi-section level, which I think that's the only level in this game that has, or that's the only level in the original game that has like more than one section that has different theming. And it's also the hardest level in the game. Having never actually played this level legitimately, I don't know how hard it is on the Game Boy version. Man, he's doing exactly what I did. Well, not to the same extent. All these levels just feel the same. Like, jeez. Meanwhile, you can listen to the awesome 8-bit rendition of Bramble Blast, or what was it, Sticker Brush Symphony? Or is it Sticker Bush Symphony? I don't remember. Alright, here's the second boss fight. As I recall, it's actually not that much different from the first boss fight. Yeah, okay, he's doing a much better job of actually being entertaining. I guess with this game it's a little bit hard to do. So it's pretty much the same old, same old. I think this is like the original version, where you only have to put in one barrel in his gun before he dies. You know, one thing I do give them credit for is that instead of just making a down conversion and calling it Donkey Kong Country, even though it's clearly not, they actually called it Donkey Kong Land, so you actually knew it was kind of a different game. Keyword here being kind of. Just sinks into the ground. In the original version, there's a big laser that pops out of it. Alright, and that's the end! That is Donkey Kong Land 2. So, I had fun watching over this again. I apologize if this was very rambly, but I wanted to do something a bit different. You know, I just thought this would be fun to do for once. It was great to be able to go back on this and reminisce about it. And, you know, I do hope that somebody at some point actually does improve this TAS, because it isn't very good, and I fully admit to cutting a lot of corners on this TAS, but in the end, I made it when I was 15, or not even, I was 13 when I started it, and, you know, being 14 when it was finished, I mean, I didn't finish it, Mike 89 did. You know, I actually impressed a few people on the TASVideos forums about the fact that I was actually able to get this done, and, you know, I probably may have been one of the youngest people to ever get a TAS published on TASVideos. A lot of the people there were older, they had better knowledge of how games worked, I think. You know, there were a lot of things I didn't do with this TAS. I didn't do RAM watching, I didn't frame by frame like the first world, and I didn't do a lot of extensive testing, and to make a TAS you have to have a lot of patience and a lot of determination to get it done, and at the end of the day, I just did not have that. I mean, I had the decency to do frame by frame for most of the run, but the keyword there is most, and I still cut corners even after doing frame by frame. You know, in the first world, I think another mistake I made is that I only used 2 save states instead of making use of all 10. Man, Visual Boy Advance, that's just... I have not used VBA in forever. I remember a lot of my friends at school also had VBA, and they had the version that wasn't meant for TASing. So my version had save states and nobody else's did, and I could also like slow it down and stuff. Or actually, I think most versions had save states, but they didn't have slowdown. And they were just like, what in the world, how do you do that? I can't do that on mine. I was like, because I'm cool, get over it. The other fond memory I have, I remember I really liked Mega Man when I had started middle school. And one of the things I did was that I remember I was playing Mega Man 2 and I made it to Dr. Wily's castle for the first time. And I had almost the entire class looking at my screen. They're like, have you ever made it this far before? I'm like, no, I haven't. And I was just like, that was a crowning moment. That was just... You guys might want to laugh at me for having good memories of middle school, but you know what? More power to me. If I have good memories of middle school, so be it. Dang, this is catchy music. Oh yeah, that's just something I always found weird. Even in the SNES version, people are only shown by their first initial and last name. For here I can understand it because the game is small, but for the SNES version, really? Or, I don't know if that's true or not, but... whatever. Anyway, that is just about the end. Alrighty, that is the end. So, thank you all for watching this. If you actually made it this far, I congratulate you. I do appreciate it. Why are you still watching this? Get off your computer and do something productive. Maybe I should take my own advice sometime. Anyway, this is Mr. 831, and goodbye, everybody.